Hey, welcome back to the Scenery Farm. This is me doing a number of processes in this video. I'm spray painting the hinges, and I'm not a fan of spray paint, but you know, when you're doing this, really, it's the best way to do it. So you got to do it sometimes. I'm just going back and making sure I get them from all sides. I will be flipping them over and doing the other side once they're dry. And I put all the bolts in a piece of styrofoam. I'm just doing the second coat. Yeah, I know badness, spray painting styrofoam. Sometimes you got to do it. And marking away on the corner blocks. I've ripped these strips. They're cross-grained, but it doesn't matter because I'm making squares out of them. It's a good angle of the. I've marked the corner blocks and set it up. It's good against the blade, and then I just mark the bed of the saw, and I give it a bit of an arrowhead so I know where to find it. Can't hold that, and I can't let go of the piece that's up against the stop block. And so this is my solution for doing multiple pieces that are teeny and keep my fingers away from the old blade. And speaking of the blade, yep, it's dirty. I cut something on it I wasn't supposed to cut, and I gotta clean it. Now, before I go to put the corner blocks in, paper and reality are different, and so I do a fit up of the skirt on the underside of the lid, and I mark it. I take all the pieces and I put them in place, tape them in place, and I make sure that it's correct. To make sure I get this in the right spot, I hold a bit of tape in place. And my whole goal here is, for the first one anyways, to make sure that I have paper and reality matching up. They did, which is nice. And you can see the notches and how they're going to sit inside the front to back skirt pieces. And there's the notches for the coffin locks touching the underside of the lid. And yeah, I tape them in place. I mark it out. I make sure that by doing this, that the feet are going to be friction fit up against the skirt. It would be easier for me to do that if I had the outside of the lid touching the outside of the skirt, but because there's an overhang, I wanted to doubly make sure it worked out well. I've nailed these in place already. Now I'm just pre-drilling, and now I'm going to screw them in place. Just refilling my little screw caddy there. I made this screw caddy on a Lark over 20 years ago, and it's the solvent adhesive plexiglass, and I have it spray adhesive, some cork to the bottom of it. I did it just because it was easy and I wanted to play with the material. I hadn't used solvent since I was in elementary school, solvent on plexiglass, and I'm just dead impressed how this thing's lasted. I mean, I treat it nicely, but at any rate, I'm using 1 1/4" screws to make sure they don't go through the lid. Once the pieces are all done, I go around and I do the same 1/8" round over on all the feet. Helps it locate up against the skirt, and yeah, that was the last process I needed to do. And this is me just taking my airless and I'm priming the lids. The prime, you can see, is a bit of a gray color. I had the store I got it at tint it with some black so that it was a gray color, and if there were any chips on the black, it'd be less obnoxiously white. Yeah. This dolly is about an inch and change taller than my sawhorses. And I've set the horses up so that they're wide enough for the dolly to slide in. I just tip the lid up, take my dolly table out, and then I rinse and repeat for the other two tops. I have a little Lazy Susan box on the dolly, and I'm just covering the bench for overspray. Because, you know, you got to take care of your dolly. I'm putting down the points to keep the skirt pieces up off the Lazy Susan. And then I go and I give all of the visible sides of the skirt a spray. I end up doing 2 coats of primer, sanding in between, and then I do a final kind of touch-up sand on the second coat, and then 1 good coat of black paint on all these pieces. Taking a fine grit sponge sand block, and I'm sanding with the grain to take the hair down. The grain hair sticks up when you paint it. It gets a little prickly, so you just take it off. 1 nice pass with the sanding block, and it gets fairly smooth. And then once you do that, you're going to wipe it down with a rag and get rid of the dust. Give her a blow. You could go to the extent of a tack rag if you wanted to, but the amount that you're going to be picking up with the tack rag, you're going to be going through a rag every single square foot on this thing. So I found that these microfiber cloths work really well. I mean, I do one in when I do this whole project, but that's worth it. Just taking the corners down. You can see how smooth the wood is now, the paint. It just moves along, doesn't catch at all. It is amazing how good you can get this wood, even the end grain, with a sand and a couple coats of primer. This is the surface of the lid after 2 coats of primer. It's very smooth. Just in case I have the sanding block, but I don't really need it because it's super smooth. And I'm taking the dust off to get ready for the black paint. Black paint goes on wonderfully, and it's ready to be assembled once it's cured. I give it a couple days. And yeah, thanks for coming.